to go very far back. We can go back in the last few years as far as Gaza, the attacks on Gaza, that basically silence was what most of the Arab countries, the way they responded to the Israeli attack on the Palestinians. I was asking you the question, why do we see a totally different reaction right now concerning the government in Damascus?
Well, first of all, the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians is not a local conflict between the Palestinians themselves. It's a conflict between a foreign occupying power, Israel, and the legitimate people in the country, which are the Palestinians. Here in Syria, you have a fight between Syrians, the Syrian government fighting its own people. Now, when the Syrian government is, you cannot compare the Syrian government fighting its own people and destroying its own country with Israel, which is a foreign occupying force. So first. Second, with regard to what you're saying in terms of the reaction, I mean, the reaction has been going on for ages against Israel. There are certain countries who can do something and certain others who can't do something.
Okay. Well, let me get Mr. Al-Halabi back in on this. Let me get Mr. Al-Halabi back on this. Mr. Al-Halabi, your take on this. There seems to be a totally different reaction when it comes to Syria by many of Syria's neighbors. Why is that the case? Why does it appear that so many of the neighboring countries, their ultimate goal is the downfall of Bashar al-Assad's government?
I think, first of all, we should focus on the interests of Israel and USA. Both Tel Aviv and Washington are trying to implicate King Abdullah II in hostile actions or to host hostile activities against Syria, the brother and the neighbor. One point. Second point, other countries like Turkey, they have also their own ambitions against Syria, whether it is expansionism of Erdogan or whether it is NATO collaborating between Turkey and USA and NATO itself. For this reason, I think King Abdullah II would make a hard mistake, a hard risk, if he would be involved in any hostile activities against such a brother and neighbor country as Syria, because King Abdullah II knew very well what happened to Hosni Mubarak. Hosni Mubarak was very strong, very sincere ally to USA and Israel, and it doesn't make Obama and Netanyahu not to asking him or demanding from him to step down in a humiliating way, and he's now in prison. I think King Abdullah II, the USA and Israel can let him down and would not defend him if things would be would have certain implications in his internal situation.
Okay.
Because demographically and politically, let me just finish this, please. I'm very sorry. Politically and demographically, he has a fragile regime. Palestinians on their boundaries with the Jordanian River, the long ones, they can see their homeland is occupied while the Jordan would host hostile activities against a neighbor that sacrificed for the Palestinian cause.
All right, let me turn back to Beirut and get Mr. Morkadi back in on this. Mr. Morkadi, we saw recently King Abdullah of Jordan in the United States talking to U.S. President Barack Obama. And of course, now we also have several hundred American troops in Jordan. Is it not curious for you who support the insurgents that it appears that Washington is in very, very close contact, if not giving orders, to many of the players on that side? Is that of concern at all to you?
I do not think that Washington is giving orders to anybody. Washington is consulting with a lot of people, just as much as those who support the government in Syria, like the Soviet Union, Russia, I mean, are consulting with a lot of people. They're not giving orders. When the King Abdullah II went to Washington, he was consulting and not taking orders from President Obama, consulting about the best way to deal with the situation, about the best way to deal with the chemical weapons, about the best way to deal with the growing refugee problem, and to save the people of Syria from the brutality of the regime. So yes, they have to consult with each other. He will be consulting also with Prime Minister Erdogan, Mr. Obama will be, in the next few weeks. He has already consulted with the Emir of Qatar. So yes, there are consultations going on, and everybody is trying to see how best to deal with the situation.
Okay,
so
I'm going to come back to that. I want to come back to those consultations and what's the best way to deal with the situation. But first, let me switch over to some of our viewers' Facebook messages. Let's check them out.
Jordan should not help to fuel a fire in neighboring Syria. The king should never have succumbed to pressure from the US to undermine Syria. This whole episode benefits no one but Israel. Stop supporting the rebels in Syria. Close all training camps in Jordan. Stop helping the West terrorize Syria. Remember, what happens to your neighbor will happen to you one day as well. Please help the Syrians to find a peaceful solution and stop fueling the insurgency there. The people do not want any foreign interference in either of the two sides.
Well, Mr. Al-Halabi in Damascus, I want your comments on what many of our viewers were saying. Basically, they're looking at the overall comments have been saying that for Jordan not to allow themselves to be used and get involved in the Syrian situation. Your take on Jordan's role in general and why you feel that they're doing what they're doing right now?
I think King Abdullah II is under pressure. Believe me, nobody would ignore that King Abdullah II is not the historical ally to USA. Everybody knows that. For this reason, America can't force him. But he has a choice. He can choose to be neutral. Although to be neutral, it will be shameful for Jordan because Jordan people and Jordan government should support any peaceful solution for Syria, any peaceful way to stop bloodshedding in Syria. King Abdullah II knew very well that Israel would be would have the most interest from any instability in Syria.